episode of Beyond the Fourth Wall. Thanks for joining us tonight. And tonight we are so lucky we have Eric Tucker back with us.
Hello.
Hi, Eric.
Hi.
Eric is the artistic director of Bedlam in New York City. And some of you are lucky enough to have seen the wonderful production he directed for us of St. Joan a couple years back. And also CRY HAVOC. He directed CRY HAVOC as well, which we just recently reran the film of, which we had Stefan on as well. And we had it in the theater. So welcome, Eric. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh my gosh, you're so welcome. I was trying to remember how many years it was since we did Joan, because it feels like forever, and yet it wasn't really that long ago.
No, I would say 4 years ago, maybe 4 seasons ago. I bet
Yeah.
Catherine will tell us in
Yep.
a minute.
Yeah,
but
she'll look it up.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah, 2016.
Yeah.
Gosh, you're right. I can't remember stuff. It all blurs to me, but that's,
So lucky guess.
oh my gosh. It was,
Oh, there it is.
oh my God, that's the one, that's your theater.
So we have, keep this up for a minute, Catherine, because we have, that's sort of, that's Bedlam's original postcard. over
Right.
there
On
on
that side, yeah.
Yeah.
And then on the right is the production that we did in Houston, and that's 𝗕𝗏𝗰 and John Russell and Spencer Ast, and behind the painting is 𝗧𝘂𝗍𝗄𝗃.
Right, and of course our Joan is not in that particular picture. Joan is Samantha Steinmetz, who's amazing. So
Yeah, she's off stage there.
yeah, we don't have her at that moment, but all right.
It was so fun bringing it there, and I love your space so much. I think partly it makes everything feels long, like it was longer now because of COVID, but you know.
Totally.
That's true. I definitely agree.
Back in the time when we did theater.
Yeah, right.
Right.
People were in rooms together.
Yeah.
Oh, terrible. Yeah.
I know. Well, but speaking of not being in rooms together, I know you've been doing a lot of content,
Yes.
reading-wise, and doing a lot of good works, donating to a lot of Black Lives Matter causes, which I think is wonderful. I've caught a few things, which has been fantastic.
Yes.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about, I know Catherine has a list of your upcoming reading projects. She can put that up real quick too. If you want to talk a little bit about the, objectives behind what you're doing with your virtual play reading series.
Well, we basically are doing them every 2 weeks on Tuesdays. We've been doing them for several months now. And, I think when the pandemic happened and people started doing stuff on Zoom, we thought, well, we knew we would do some readings. We thought, well, this is a chance for us to put some people to work and do some stuff. And then when the George Floyd murder happened, we thought, well, theaters are coming out with declarations of, we stand by you and such and letters and stuff. And we thought, well, what can we do that would be words, but also what can we do? What can we do that would be more than words? And we thought, well, we want to do these readings, so let's commit to doing one every 2 weeks until the end of the year, and all the money we raise will go to different organizations that fight discrimination. And in fact, I think I feel like we've probably raised far more money for those organizations than if we were just doing a reading every 2 weeks and trying to raise money for ourselves.
Yeah.
That's great.
That cause kind of gets old. So I think it's been a good thing anyway, and we feel good about it. It makes us feel good, and we just made that commitment. So we've been doing it, and most of the time, an organization is there's a thing called Act Blue, where so when you make a donation, it just goes right to them. Yeah. And then some organizations we've tried to find, especially recently, some that are much smaller that where our money really kind of makes a difference, or we can really try to help. And so we'll, if they're not with Act Blue, it comes to us, but we give it to them. And it's just been really nice. And it's also been fun because it gives a lot of people a chance to direct the readings and all kinds of different actors and,
Yeah.
And one of the best things about all this to me is that someone in Houston can now suddenly very easily see something that Bedlam is doing, and
yes, and participate. I mean, what's been fun is, like with you guys, I mean, we've taken shows all over the country, and in a lot of the times when we bring certain shows, we'll use sometimes half of the cast will be local.
Yeah.
And so we've been able to use actors that have done Bedlam shows all over the country in
Right.
some of these readings, and it's a way to bring all these actors together we'd never be able to work with unless they were in the city,
Yeah.
or that we were, so that's been really cool too, and really fun
Yeah.
to put people back together, and it's been great.
That's cool.
So
Whenever we've had an artistic director on in this series, I've asked them when, if tomorrow the magic pill was ready and COVID was gone, do you think you would continue online programming?
I think we might. I don't think it would be as frequent. I think we might for certain causes or for certain purposes. Like I thought maybe it could be useful if, you wanted to do a workshop of something and you wanted people to see it who might not be able to be in the room. I think I think it opens up a lot of possibilities. It doesn't interest me as a theater maker beyond, if I can be in a room with people, I want to be in the room with them. So it would, if it came up, there was a real plus side to it, or, but otherwise, when it first happened, I thought the pandemic and everybody was sort of rushing to get online content up and things like that. I thought, I don't, and I'm not, and I don't, I still don't know if I know the answer, but I thought, I don't know if we as theater makers should be making it that easy. Do we want people to miss it? Or do we want to show them that actually, well, you can just get it at home. So even when we have the magic pill, I think my jury was out on that. I didn't want to really embrace it.
You're saying the things that happen in my head. You and I have the exact same point of view about
we
it.
all on the same
Yes.
page.
I also had an opinion about, and we had a discussion about this with someone else, I think too, is I think there's some danger in the accessibility of this online content because there's no money for artists.
I agree.
And it's become something now that people expect to be for free.
Yeah.
And even if you charge a small amount of money, people are like, well, why would I pay for that when I can go get 45 things over here for free? And when you can't charge anything, it becomes easier and easier to have an excuse to not pay artists. And you know how we feel about paying artists.
Yes.
So it's like, well, I'm not going to do any content that I can't pay everybody. I don't care if it's online. I don't care if it's in the grocery store. I don't care where it is. Yeah. So that's a real important argument and discussion that you're talking about.
Yeah. So I don't know if certainly not like we are now. I feel like it's an afterthought if we're putting up shows.
I agree. I think it's something for me that if you're doing theater, I want to be in a room and I want to have the live experiences. You can't have that online. And if it's something where it's a workshop or it's an educational format or it's a extension that there are some people who can't get to the theater where they get a taste of something.
Yes.
I understand that.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's right.
Yeah. But there's a strange thing, and tell me if you agree. I think there's a strange thing right now that's going on where there's a kind of, and maybe it's unspoken, maybe it's actually spoken, I don't even know, where people are almost trying to make an assumption or create this worldly idea that this is the new theater, that this is theater. And I'm like, this online experience that's starting to evolve. And I'm like, no, we're evolving into something, but it is never going to be theater. And to start that kind of dialogue or that kind of conversation is not good for us, I think.
Yeah, I think that the further we go, we get into this, particularly get into the fall, when we obviously several months ago, we were all hoping, well, there might be the possibility, right? That keeps happening. And then now I'm seeing people who thought they might be programming January, February, that's getting canceled. Yeah. Talking about now, will we do something in April? Maybe not. Right. Certainly, I think Broadway won't be back till at least the fall of 21. If then, so I think the more it gets pushed off, that is a feeling. That is the thing where it's like, well, this is the new norm, and we have to start embracing it. And what's interesting about it is like, when I've been able to sort of, I mostly haven't directed any of our readings. I've done a couple, and each time I've had to do it, I should say I get to do it. But each time I don't mean had to, but each
I
time
know
I get to
what
do it,
I
I
know what you
feel,
mean.
well, I just feel like I kind of take the attitude of let's just kind of have fun and everybody play. I don't have any interest in innovating it or sort of saying, well, gosh, they did it this way and they found these cool things. What can we do to just really, I'm just not interested. It's like, for me, it's like if you're sitting around the house, you just want to put on some sweats. Like I don't want to, I don't have, I want to get back in a theater and
No.
be innovative if I can, or try to switch it up.
Yeah.
But I don't care about Zoom.
Yeah. No, I completely, that is exactly how I feel. The idea of trying to have an experience with another artist on Zoom depresses me because it's not possible.
You know, and some of our audience.
I'm going to get that
we're
dog.
gonna get the dog.
I'm going to get that dog.
Amanda agrees with us.
And I'll talk a little bit because, for whoever watches this who doesn't know any of Bedlam's work, or who maybe they've even only seen St. Joan and CRY HAVOC at Fourth Wall.
Right.
I just want to say, like, so I think I've seen 1, 2, 3, maybe 5 Bedlam shows.
Okay.
And the thing about that I know about you as your work is that you are, if anything, you are an innovator. You take these plays and the spaces where they're performed, and you change the way I would expect to see the play done.
That's nice.
That is something, well, no, but I mean, it's true about you. You shouldn't be modest about that. I have an Excel spreadsheet on my computer, Eric, that's called Bedlam staging techniques, and it's where I try to like explain to myself, what did he
That's
do?
awesome.
Oh, it's amazing.
Yes.
I've learned so much just trying to think about, what some of the things
Yeah.
you've done that I've never seen anybody else do.
Well,
as
that's
a
nice.
director. And so to me, it really means something when you say, I don't want to innovate Zoom. It's just not, and I feel the same way, Eric. It is,
Yeah.
it's something that I'm not a filmmaker. I'm not trained as a filmmaker. Editing is way beyond my thoughts. And it seems to me that, we already have a bunch of people who are really good at that kind of thing. They're in Hollywood.
Now, and that doesn't mean to me, though, just to be clear, that people shouldn't get together on Zoom and they shouldn't have creative outlets and be together.
Absolutely.
It just means it's not theater to me.
Yeah.
There's a difference between saying, let's read something, let's be together, let's talk about art, let's try to be creative. But that we're talking about the assumption that it's a new kind of theater. That to me is blurring the line of what's true.
Well, and it's, it's kicked all of our asses so that we can, we could spend an hour with you in public tonight Zoom was around before COVID, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And we just didn't, we didn't go, oh, let's have Eric on for an hour and just talk about theater. And I think that's a boon.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a good thing. We could call you and say, hey, we have a problem with this show. Can you meet us Friday night and help us?
I think
there's some
good,
thing.
Right. But the thing about sort of to make it now, just sort of put energy into making it the thing and better. But because I don't want it to be the norm, but and
so
good.
let's let that segue into what you're doing to be creative and feel like you're having an experience. I know you guys are working on something that's like a series of some sort that's going to be performance.
Well, talk about that.
All right.
Well, the thing is it goes back to what Philip's saying. I mean, when it felt like, well, there's either stage performances, which we're not going to do, or for now, or Zoom or something on a screen, bringing something on the screen to people. I thought, well, what if we did something, let's do something that's really meant for the screen. Let's film something. And I had this idea up outside of Bedlam, just as a, about a TV show that I thought would be cool, where you would take several Shakespeare plays and throw all the plots together and even combine some of the characters and make like an episodic television show. And I don't know, there's no real Shakespeare, not adapting the language, but using Shakespeare's language. And I thought there's nothing like that on television, really. And I thought that would be kind of fun. And
All
so,
right.
just the idea that you could, if could I take a bunch of Shakespeare plays and sort of mingle them up and make a TV show.
Mhm.
And then um, when I thought, well, we're not going to do a play in 2000 in the fall of this year.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, let me run the. Why doesn't Bedlam start shooting this series? It's within our mission statement because it's a true adaptation of
Right.
Shakespeare, and the idea is that it's the casting. What we've had in mind for casting is that that it's so incredibly inclusive and it's a huge cast, and so it puts a lot of actors to work, which is sort of not what you want on a small budget, on a film budget, is tons of
Right.
actors and tons of locations. But we thought, well, let's just try it. And I ran it by my board. They loved the idea. And so we decided to try to shoot 2 of the 8 episodes in October.
Mhm.
And we'll release them sort of on a pay-per-view kind of a thing, or and then maybe we'll hopefully do more of the episodes in the coming year. Um, and so I thought, well, I guess I have to start writing it. So I worked all summer sort of writing it, and then I brought on a writing partner, and we've both been we have 8 episodes. We even have a show Bible and treatment and all kinds of stuff, which has actually gone out to some networks, but that's a side thing.
Yeah.
But so this first season combines King Lear, The Merry Wives of Windsor, and Merchant of Venice. And then sort of by the end of the season, there's a little bit of Midsummer ekes in there. But also we pull text from like 15 other Shakespeare plays to kind of fill in the plots. Because like the King Lear story now really starts before the map scene. There's a lot of text there that kind of gives them some history. And then you move into, in episode 2, the map scene happens. And then but it mingles all of it. And then, for example, some of the characters are the same. Like Gloucester is also George Page, and there's other things like that. And then it kind of ends with like the final episode, like the last 30 seconds. There's this really cool twist and all this stuff that leads you into season 2. But so we've got, it's actually 30 actors. And it's pretty much, we just finished casting today because there were a few remaining things we had auditioned. So most of them are people you'd recognize from Bedlam shows and
Good.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
And with a few extra people we've
Mhm.
found in big and small roles.
Yeah.
So it's like 30 actors. It's a ton of locations. We're going to shoot for 3 weeks in October, and then we found a cinematographer and it's a film crew, but we're
Right.
instead of a theater crew, but so we're just going to do that and see how that
great.
goes. I don't know.
Awesome.
We're excited though. It'll
think
be
that's
fun.
awesome.
Yeah, it's really good.
Well, because that's what this is we're on a film medium now. And I think you're smart to make that
Yeah.
transition if you're going to do it. I think it's
We
great.
just It was just our way of swerving with the pandemic, and trying to work, just put
Yeah.
people to work and do something. And I think it does something really cool. It's set in, it's modern. It's in a kind of a small time crime world thing where so all those plays kind of fit there. So it's not super expensive in terms of the costuming or whatever, but it'll have its own look. But I think it'll make Shakespeare very accessible to a TV kind of an audience, and see what that does. I don't know.
Do you know where you will shoot it yet?
Yes, so we lucked out because we're shooting for about a third of it in Sunnyside, Queens. We found this kind of insane place that's going to be able to be tons of our locations, and then lots of little things we're going to be able to dress in there. And then we're shooting up here in the Hudson Valley for the other 2/3 of it.
Good.
Because it sort of fits the look of, there's a town up here that's kind of industrial and it's kind of blue collar and it fits the world. And so we're shooting a lot of stuff up here. Part of it's in like a roadside motel, and there's a pawn shop, and there's all these. So we're doing a lot of the pawn shop's in Queens, but anyway, so between those two, we've really lucked out with our locations, because it's tons of locations, but we were able to kind of localize them.
And how are you negotiating this, or maybe you're not, with Actors Equity? Are you doing it?
No, we're doing it through SAG,
Right.
and they, you know, the rules with COVID are really strict,
Yeah.
Yeah.
as they need to be, and it's great. And you have to really do a lot of things that you normally wouldn't have done before, like provide floor plans and ventilation plans, all kinds of stuff for all the locations, all kinds of stuff. You have to have COVID people on the staff and testing every 2 days. We're doing all that. I mean, we've made that a part of the budget, and it's a big part of the budget, but we want to do it, so we're doing it. And SAG finally approved us. We were coming down the wire thinking, oh my God, we might have to push our dates back. Everything we've heard of has had to push their dates back. And they approved us, and we're doing our dates, and we're going for it. So
Good.
fingers crossed that,
Oh, I'm
you
so
know,
excited.
I can't wait to see
Oh, me
that.
too.
I think it'll be fun.
Ingenious.
Well, hopefully we'll have a trailer in like,
Oh.
you know, November, so you can kind of get a flavor.
Good. Oh, that's awesome.
So you're obviously jazzed about that. This is something
thing.
Yeah.
where you are interested in.
Well, I've always been interested in directing for film or TV in that medium, most certainly. And then, you know, theater's taken up my whole life. So I'm really excited to kind of, you know, since I sort of have no other choice right now, just swerve into that and do it. It'll be interesting because, like a lot of our shows, I'm also in it.
Yeah.
But I think it's manageable. And then, you know, there's a ton of people in, so I think but yeah, I'm excited to work in that way. And we're trying to make it very cinematic and, you know.
Yeah.
You'll
directing it and
direct
being in it.
both segments? You'll
Yes.
direct both of those? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's great.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of slings and arrows. I can't help but think of slings and arrows.
Well,
I just that, but
God, I love those so much.
I know I do too. I'm sure yours is very different, but anything with Shakespeare that is a show that's about theater or performing artists and doing Shakespeare and putting things together, I just get really excited. So,
I don't
not
think
enough
I
out
could.
there.
I don't know if I want to attempt to do what they did because it's so brilliant. And if ours turns out like that, it'll be an accident. It won't be the right kind of.
That's okay. Accidents are great. Yeah.
It'll just be silly because we've messed it up. So,
if I understood you correctly, all the dialogue is Shakespeare, right?
Yeah.
Yes, but I mean, it's like, yes, and of course it's sliced and diced and made so that it really fits a kind of TV. You know, there are some longish scenes, but it's also, you know, like for example, there's this whole dinner scene that I put together that happens kind of August Osage County, like with the Lear family.
Yeah.
And a lot of that text is pulled from like Richard III and different things. So if you really know Shakespeare, you'll be able to go, oh my God, that's from that, or oh, that's from Henry VI Part 1, and sometimes in weird ways we use it. I think it's cool because it's a hodgepodge of like 20 plays, but we're only following the plots of 3 that kind of, and then I figure, well, if I were able to do more seasons, I don't think anyone will remember that I use those 10 lines from Henry VI or those, so it doesn't really matter.
No. There's very few people like him who will know that.
I wouldn't even know it, but you know, I'm sure there'll be, you know, some kid in Peoria who's like online all the time. Well, he's reusing that one line from Henry VI Part 3 all the time.
You're right.
Well, that's like,
that again.
That's like people who, when you're doing, you must have had this when you're doing, especially if you're doing Shakespeare and you have people following along. It's so intimidating.
You're right.
Yeah.
Because you're like, I can't mess up a word.
Do the closed caption thing.
You're right. Oh, I love closed caption night.
Oh, I've been saying that line wrong.
So intimidating. That's the worst. Because all you're thinking of is that one person the whole night.
Oh my God.
No, it'll be fun. I'm excited. And, you know, it's a really amazing group of actors. It's really good. Sure. But the funny, crazy thing is, like, for a low budget thing, we should be like doing it in one location with like 2 actors. And there are days when like there's like 14 actors in a scene, or it's gonna be crazy.
Oh, that's great.
But whatever,
Well, it's Shakespeare. It would be very hard. I mean, I know you did Hamlet with 4 people, but
Yeah.
it would be very hard to do a TV series mishmashing Shakespeare without some stuff with a lot of people.
Yeah.
Feels like it makes
Again,
sense.
for our audience, I'd like to talk for a second about how I first found out about Bedlam. I read a review in the New York Times of the very first thing you produced, which was, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, it blew my mind because it was, hey, they're doing a 4-person Hamlet, and then in its entirety, no cuts. Usually it's a 4.5-hour play. I think you told me you got through it in 2.5 hours. You can talk about it in a minute, but not satisfied with that. Those same 4 actors in repertory are also performing Shaw's St. Joan.
Right.
And I was like, what the hell
are they doing? Yeah.
and then I kind of forgot about it. And then later on, I read that when we happened to be visiting New York, you were doing 2 versions of 12th Night, and we were lucky enough to get into one of them. And that's when
that's where we met.
We saw What You Will.
We waited after.
I remember it very well. Yeah.
Off you.
I'll never forget it. So it's not. So Bedlam doesn't usually do things with I would not fair to say, but so but that seems to have been sort of a starting point for you, and obviously, if you're doing a play like that with 4 actors, like those plays, the actors are, one of the things about the actors is that they have to be able to play a lot of different characters convincingly, and so that's way different than what you're talking about now, I think.
Yes, totally.
Yeah,
I'm very different, because you're really looking at it really is just straight down 1 person per role. I mean, I have thought about it like the cool thing is, I think it would be kind of a fun way. I mean, I know a couple series sort of do this, like American Horror, where they bring back the same actors in different roles, and you feel like they're kind of a company of actors. I think that's cool to see on TV, and I think you could do that. But I mean, I think one of the big reasons when you first start a company, and even now, it just, with larger companies, I mean, it's economical. It's hard to afford more than a 4, 5, 6 actors. It's expensive. And so for us, it was economical. I thought, well, I have to do something with very few actors, and, because of the money, but also, it's fun. I think the idea that you're doing a kind of crazy high wire act is the hook, or part of the hook. And I think when you're starting out, you need anything you can to get people in the door, in particular reviewers, and to get attention. And then if you can do it well, that's a plus. But for me, that was a lot of the motivation was.
It was definitely a hook for me. I was blown away when I saw What You Will, and later on Pygmalion,
and then
Crucible.
It's always
Sense and Sensibility. All of those had that element, and I admire actors who are transformational so much.
Well, I don't think I ever could have directed Kate's Pride and Prejudice if I hadn't seen your production.
Of Sense.
I couldn't have done the mental gymnastics of what the creativity is for that kind of script if I hadn't seen what you've done.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
No, I think I do too. I've always admired people who are transformational, or, it does put a premium on actors, when you really boil it down to nothing, just let's play and actors you really love. And then also a group that has a chemistry, I think that's why Steppenwolf was so successful when they started, because it really was just about that group of actors. Like wasn't about even a director or it was really, there's this group of people on stage who could like kill each other. Like it's just fierce with each other, and they trusted each other, and it's a chemistry. And I think that's so fun. It's so satisfying for an audience to see a group of people that are clearly like, can almost do anything with each other up there and trust each other and are having a good time, even when they're tearing their guts out, So I love, that's the kind of people who, you guys surround yourselves with people you want also. And I mean, you really want to put that group. I think that's even more important than an individual's talent sometimes. It's, I mean, you can get the most talented people in the world, but also you just want people who are super game, who are willing to get in and play,
Yeah.
and that you trust and have fun with. And, you know, I think that's the most important, maybe. Now
Yeah,
I'm going down the road of casting, but I do think,
no, it's true.
but you know, but then we, like Crucible, there were 14, but we are boiling. We have come up with a plan that maybe we still might bring that back and do it with 6.
Oh, that would be great.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
I think it would be cool to
Yeah.
do our production that we did, but with 6. First of all, we could really afford it. It'd be
Yeah.
very economical. With 14, you know, we could break even, but it wasn't like we're going to make anything, but it was hard. That's a lot of actors. But with 6, maybe that's the way after COVID to bring it back.
Well, if you do it with 6, we'll come back out for sure and watch it,
Watch
and
it
maybe
again, absolutely.
you can direct it for us and bring it out
Okay.
to us, because
Well,
that,
one of the
because I know you take
Let's
your
make
shows on
plans
the
to do
road.
theater together again.
Yeah, right. Yay!
2025.
Yeah, right.
Maybe if we're all not retiring because we're in walkers.
How many,
Right.
how many
That's so
budgets, how
depressing.
many different budgets have you made? We've made
Right.
like 17.
I know.
Okay,
Yes.
throw that one out.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Right.
You know, we were thinking, you know, like you could, how cool it would be to see the woman who's playing 𝗘𝗽𝗶𝗀 and Rebecca Nurse. In our production, she was like 𝗘𝗽𝗶𝗀, Rebecca Nurse, and
Yeah.
one of the younger girls. In Act 2, come back and be Danforth, the main
Yeah,
JOAN.
yeah.
Like you could do so many great
Yeah.
pieces of casting, you know, that would be
Right.
make it resonate in different ways. That
Yeah.
it would be worth bringing it back. But
Yeah. I think so, definitely.
but did you guys change your? Have you started thinking about, like, because you know a lot of theaters I remember a lot of theaters, most probably saying during when the pandemic first hit and it was obvious that everyone was canceling their season, saying, well, we'll be back the following, and you know, we'll just keep this season because we love these choices and we're going to stick with it and bring it back. And then when George Floyd happened, then theaters went and said, oh, we should really rethink our programming because we're not being conscious about other things. And then I started seeing, you know, people are rethinking material as they should be. I mean, is that something you guys also thought? I mean, is that happening in Houston and places like that where people are saying, gosh, we need to think about our programming better or differently?
Yeah, I think it might be. I know that we have, well, here's a personal thing right now. You know, we shut down between Riverside and Crazy in the first weekend, and we left the set. So we're like, well, we're going to start with that. And that set is still sitting there. But I don't know that we can do that play. You know, it's 7 people. It's pretty intense physically together. So we're now thinking, well, maybe we will, maybe we won't.
But that's a COVID consideration.
But that's what I mean about COVID. But that's
the going to say that play.
No, but that's what I think.
That play is a good play to do.
We're talking about both things, right? Yeah. No, but for
we want to
I'm talking about both issues. Yeah, I'm talking
COVID.
about COVID and like even because I think the early coming back. So we're thinking about Black Lives Matters and we're thinking about COVID because we have 2 plays that have small people, small casts.
Yes.
And like Doll's House 2, we can do easy. Nobody has to touch anybody or be together.
Yeah.
The only people who touch each other are us, Nora and 𝗘𝗏𝗏.
Yeah.
And we definitely can follow suit with Broadway and cast Emmy African American. That's no problem.
Yeah.
So, and then we also have Lifespan of a Fact, which is 3 people, and I'm directing that. And on Broadway, it was all white cast members. Well, my intention is to cast that all BIPOC. Well, that doesn't have to be white, and I think that's interesting.
Yeah.
To be, you know, that's my intention. I'll see who shows up and I'll see where it goes, but that's my intention.
Yeah, we were moving that way with casting, but you know. George Floyd and then this document that I know you know about, the White American Theater, We See You, that document, those 2 things in talking with people in the community, it was a shocker for me personally. I've said this on this show before, so our audience has heard me say it, but you know, I thought I was a pretty with it liberal guy, and then I started to hear some things and go, well, you know, you need to do some, some looking in the mirror here.
Yeah, I think we all did. Yeah.
Of course. And you know, and I think Um, and I think also, I had sold myself a lot on the idea of like, I'm doing these Stephen Adly Guirgis plays. I'm doing a lot of things. I'm really searching for these artists and everything. And then I thought, well, how are you searching? How are you really, do you even go, what do you know about the communities of artists? And I'm like, well, I go to some plays. I'm like, well, you don't really do the work you need to do. And, you're not doing your part to be a part of the communities of other artists like they are doing to be a part of you. And it's a two-way street. And I think
Yeah,
I have some
that's
great
smart.
African-American artists who are my friends who I work with on a regular basis, but I don't think I've understood what it meant to really be a part of the artistic community as a wider range of ethnicities. And I have not done that work.
And
Yeah, I
then
know.
you add to it that we have all these ideas of things we want to change and do, and we can't do any
And
of
we
them.
can't do anything. So we're like, well,
Well, that's right. That's really the other thing. It's like, we can lay the groundwork, but
yeah,
We
yeah,
can do that. We can have discussions
Yeah.
amongst our staff and board and stuff.
yeah.
that's a
Yeah.
waiting game in all other respects. But yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think, and that's what's great about it, is that it's made all of us think, oh, I can do better. I know I can do better. Of course I can. And so, that's wonderful.
And it
It
might
is.
not be
It's
a
good.
bad thing that there's some time that we've all, because we're not producing theater, to be able to
Yes.
say, well, how am I going to do this? Because it's when you haven't thought that way as much as you thought you did, to have to reprogram the way you think or how you reach out and maybe do things that are hard for you, you need time to
Yeah. Of course, because as you're saying that, I'm thinking, it's almost serendipitous for the one that COVID's, for one issue that COVID happened, because you can't, if COVID hadn't happened, it's hard to kind of put the brakes on
Yeah.
an entire nation of theaters that are running and have their, whereas COVID hit the brakes. And so
Did it
we absolutely can change everything when we come back, because we're not I mean, it really is, it's insane when you think about it.
Yeah, it stopped everything for us.
That could never have happened.
Yeah, that's true. So I've been talking a lot to people who, about saying, what are the gifts or the positives that COVID put into your life in terms of,
Yeah.
you have to, because there's enough negatives. You don't have to think about the negatives.
Yeah.
It's like, well, it gave me time to think about what's important in my life, and how can I be a better person to the artistic community? What can I actually do to better serve stories, to better serve a wider range of communities? And I don't always know those answers yet. And if I didn't have time to sit still, I wouldn't have the opportunity to actually dig deep enough to figure it out.
I agree, because it's like we have to sit and talk this out, and we have the time to.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, it's interesting, because then, really nobody can come out of this and say, well, I didn't have the time. We want to make changes, but we all have some time.
Yeah, I agree.
So I guess that's good.
We have this wonderful, he's a personal friend of mine, and he's also a really good supporter and, audience member of the theater, Brian Broom, and he's typing a bunch of stuff over there while we talk. And one thing he said, Joan, was our conversation for a month after we saw it. Can you bring it back?
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, it is nice.
Oh my gosh.
I don't want to say never. It's a great show, and there's always the possibility we
If we
could
bring it back, we have to do it with Hamlet.
That's right. We could do it. That's my thought. Is I would want to.
Yeah, that would be fun.
So,
yeah, you can do both.
Maybe we'll talk about that in 10 years.
Do you feel like you might in your part of the country? I mean, do you feel like, say, in the spring, you might actually be able to get on stage and just have a thinner room out in the house? I mean, I don't know. Do you think that?
In our part of the country, in Texas, I think that if we put a show on now, we would have no problem with the audience. I think actors would want to do it.
Yeah.
And but there are two barriers. One is our personal barrier of, if we did that and an actor got sick or God forbid died.
Yeah.
I don't think I could live with myself. That's or one.
Yeah.
And two is actors' equity won't let us.
And we are an equity theater, so we couldn't get beyond equity, which is fine. I'm not even at a point right now where I know how I feel about, why their rules are the way they are. We don't really understand everything going on there yet.
Right.
But right, yeah, we live in a part of the country where potentially in March and April, with the right presentation to equity in the right situation,
Yeah.
we could probably do a show. We might be able to do something small cast, half audience, or outside if we could find the right place.
Yeah.
Because it's, so there may be one show in March, April, but I think January, February's dreaming a little bit. I have to admit at this point, I think that's pushing it.
Yeah.
And we both think that the sort of the shakedown of how people are going to be able to produce live again is going to happen, and like Fourth Wall or even Bedlam. I mean, compared to like the Alley Theater and the McCarter Theater and these, these bigger, the Guthrie, those people are gonna get together with equity and hammer it out, right?
Yeah.
And then we're gonna have to abide by whatever comes out of that, I think.
Probably, yeah. And actually, we're probably, I think smaller houses are the things that might at least be affordable to produce in first. I mean, how do you? Yeah, it's just. Broadway shows are expensive, so they can't really run for 200 people. It doesn't.
Right.
How do you do that and make your money back each week?
Right.
And I think people are going to start looking at things that are like what you do: stripped down. You have no set.
Yes.
You don't deal with anything, any costumes. You put people in their street clothes, and
I don't think that's
tubes.
Fair, but personally, because I think all the Bedlam shows I've seen have been very very well designed.
They are well designed, but they're not expensively designed. They're not,
smartly.
You're not seeing a big elephant go downstairs in the Phantom. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like,
no, that's the key. I think is that it's just got to be. You can do less with more with less, or But yeah, I think it has to be. I think that's certainly coming right out of the COVID. This no producing few years where there's no money, or I don't. It's and we don't know who's going to come back and when, or what the audiences will be like. I think it's going to have to be, really different kinds of budgets. How could it not be? I mean, where will the money? I don't know.
I know it's an unknown. It's one of those things that we keep trying to figure out. That's why we've all made 15 budgets. We're like, we keep trying to figure out what it's going to be, and we have these plays on the docket, and like I know dramatists and equity, and everybody's like, well, what's your season and where are you moving your dates? And I'm like, well, here's another set of numbers and dates that I guess is going to be something, but your guess is as good as mine.
You know what? It's also an interesting sort of a challenge if you're a theater maker, because when you think about it, obviously pre-pandemic, all of us want, as theater makers, you want to be able to bring a bunch of people in and have them forget everything else and be immersed in your story, right? Like how great if you can bring people in and they're not thinking about work tomorrow or this. They actually are so immersed in your thing. The problem right now with thinking about going to a play during COVID, even if say it's a reduced house and you're sort of spread out, is how are you really comfortable? You're wearing a mask, you're worried about that cough or that sneeze, the bathrooms, there's not enough room. Like, it's not a comfortable night out. And even if it was, it's worse than before. There's so much more to distract, to be just not a good time, and to take so many risks, in particular if you are much older. Those are most of our theater goers. But also, it feels like at some point then, either it's, we just really have to wait until, as Fauci says now, a vaccine and then a year, or we start getting in there. But it's like, you really got to be good. You really got to make them forget that they could pick up a deadly virus tonight. Make them forget that and suck them into the story. Of course, then all the theater is just going to come right out, and then the actors are wearing masks, or it's going to be hard not to remind everybody that it's COVID.
With masks, how do you watch that? I can't even.
Know.
That's crazy.
I don't know.
I wear hearing aids, and like if I can't see somebody's mouth,
forget it.
I can't tell what the hell they're saying.
Yes, right.
Do you know how many times I've said to him, "This is what I've had. This is what I've said." I'll be like, "He said to just get in line."
You guys are like an old. That
we
is
are.
That is like
Pickersons.
I'm like, Jesus.
So let's change this up a little and ask a question that one of our viewers watched, and this is from a lovely person, 𝗘𝗽𝗶𝗀, and I don't know. Well, let's ask it of you, and then we'll probably answer it too. She says, for expanding searches for significant and vital plays, how much do you pay attention to award winners, such as the Susan Smith Blackburn Prize, Pulitzer, Drama Desk, Olivier Awards, et cetera, et cetera? Does that mean anything?
Yeah, I mean,
as far as picking material?
I think not in a purposeful way. I don't search out that kind of stuff, but I think it means, I think at first you think, oh, this thing won, this was the Tony Award winner best play, or this was the Olivier Award. Yeah, I think it makes you sort of take notice of it, and maybe more than you might if it hadn't got stamped with something like that. So I think that's why those prizes are so valuable to producers, for one thing. You look at like the Emmys just a few days ago, and Schitt's Creek that won all those Emmys.
Yeah.
Most people probably never heard of that show. I mean, a lot of people, you know what I mean?
Sure,
A lot of people kind of average. And now I'm sure it'll like quadruple it, if not more. It'll be insane, the people watching that show. So I think prizes they make people notice a thing, so they can't, but I don't search them out.
Yeah.
Very, you know what I mean?
The plays that we've seen of yours have all, you could classify them either as American classics or classics.
Well, right. I mean, like Shakespeare never won an Olivier, so but right. In our case, it's a little different because we mostly do classic plays, but you guys do all kinds of stuff. What about you? Do you look at those? You must take notice.
We sometimes look to something, especially something like the Susan Smith Blackburn, which I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Yeah, we're a source company for them too, so I do. But I read a lot of new plays and submit when I find one that I think is, from a woman writer that I think is.
That's cool.
Go to New York and Chicago and watch plays. Other places where they put
and
plays
I do
on,
when I go to when I go to New York and I see a Susan Smith prize winner or finalist running, I go see it. I always go see it. But that's also about supporting female playwrights. I do that too, to support female playwrights. And but Pulitzer winners, I do, and I also do that because if I can't get, sometimes if there's a new work that I can't get, which is not uncommon, because the Alley and the bigger theaters always have first choice.
Yeah.
If I've seen a new play that I just think this is great, and I can't get it, and then I can't find a new works that I really think is ready or is great, I will go to the Pulitzer list, because it's just great storytelling, it's great dialogue usually, and my audience is going to be happy with an award-winning play being in a slot when I only do 4 a year that I couldn't fill with a new play, or there wasn't a classic that year that felt right to me.
Yes, yeah.
So I'll go to those lists because they're strong material.
Absolutely, yeah. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Our audiences forget that it's hard for us as a smaller theater to get rights to certain plays, and then you could talk about like I remember this story because I know the Twelfth Night thing happened. You did 2 versions of Twelfth Night, but partly because you tell why.
Yeah, you were trying to get something else.
Oh yeah, we were supposed. That's right. We were originally doing Twelfth Night in Rep with the Country Girl, Odette's play, and Odette's play, and they told us at one point we didn't get the rights because there was another Odette's play happening in New York, and they didn't want them doubled up. They said, if we'd be happy to at a later date. Well, anyway, so we suddenly had this opening, and I thought, oh, well, maybe we'll just do Twelfth Night 2 different ways, and 2 different cutting, that sort of thing. So that came to me, and that's how we changed it. And it actually was such a great thing because those have been so good for us. We did them in New York and Boston, and there's been a possibility we would do them in DC. That was right, of course, before pandemic. But so it was a lucky thing and cool that we didn't. But we definitely could never get the rights to. I mean, we got the rights to Crucible, which is kind of an interesting story, but it's not. I don't really know how to talk about it too much. But we got, because of kind of connections. We don't. When you're particularly doing stuff in Manhattan, those kinds of plays, I couldn't probably do Death of a Salesman, for example, if I wanted to. Some of those big names.
Right.
our thing in the spring is we're supposed to do Angels in America, both parts in Central Square Theater in Cambridge, in Boston, where we normally go, right? Now we're pretty much there every year. We do something in Boston, and we're supposed to do both parts of Angels. We probably, and we've actually, I've had talks with Tony Kushner about doing them as Bedlam, and he's been supportive. But it happened to be when we first started talking about it right at the time when the Broadway one was coming.
Yeah.
So I mean, come on,
Right.
And then now, maybe because that happened, we could do it in Boston, and maybe think, well, maybe he'd be okay with this in New York City because, I mean, my God, the pandemic and that play, it's just like perfect.
Right?
Perfect.
I know.
Right down the alley.
But now, like you guys were, I don't know that we wouldn't really do them, and I think we go on stage around April. Who knows if that'll happen?
Yeah.
Even that might be too early.
It's interesting for people, I think, to hear what a crazy
journey it is to get a play.
I knew you Manhattan. It's just insane. I mean, I think about it sometimes. They're doing Golden Boy, so they don't want you to do the Country Girl. I'm like, why in hell?
It would seem the opposite. It would seem the more
like
Odette's
would be like,
happening,
hey, Odette's
the better.
just having a resurgence or something.
The same thing happened. I've heard it happens with other people who manage certain. I think it's like that with 𝗘𝗿𝗶𝗀. I mean, I think they don't want too much. They feel like it saturates the market too much, and they want to keep it a little bit more, I think, exclusive or something about some of these authors.
Party pants.
Yeah, they have strange ideals or agents or whatever it may be. Yeah.
Well, and you think about it, like that's been a few years, and we didn't do Country Girl, and nobody's done it since. So, okay, well,
they lose.
Well, I mean, I don't know.
Great play, and you could have done a wonderful job with it, and they you do it.
Well, one thing that came out of that is that I didn't know that play, and I was like, oh, maybe I should read that play. And I've read it like 5 times since. I'm obsessed with that play now.
Yeah, well, you guys.
So come down here and do it.
Yeah. I always loved that play, and I thought, I don't know, we had the right actors for it at the time. I thought, well, this could be fun, but again, things happen. They happen, and then something great comes of it. And we've been very happy with that little 12th Night duo. So whatever.
It's a great combination.
I mean,
we're getting close already. Look at this.
Yeah, we're almost done with our hour. Is there anything on your mind that you'd like to talk about? And if not, we have a sort of a
closing question.
Closing question.
Oh, I'm afraid of the closing question.
No, you're not. You're not afraid of it. It'll be fun.
Oh, well, I pulled up the chat. Someone's asking an interesting question. I could hit that.
Cool.
Yeah, but I still want to hear your.
Yeah.
I mean, someone's asking to address issues specific to directing a one-man show, especially when the actor's the playwright.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's the only one I've done. I did a 2-person show, the one I've done with Tina Packer of Shakespeare and Company, her Women of Will, that Nigel Gore and Tina Packer do. And we did that for many years, developing it from a play to 5 plays and all this, and then it was off Broadway, and we did it all over the world. And that was one thing, working with her, but we were very close, and we were all sort of developing the material together, but it was her piece, and she had written it, and Nigel and I influenced it, of course, because we're all, but I think the same thing happened for me on CRY HAVOC. I mean, Steph and I were very close, and really were able to kind of just work together to, and he was okay with however I thought the piece should evolve, or, and we just trusted each other. So we didn't really have any issues with it. If anything, I think he would agree, because I knew him so well outside of the piece, I kept pushing for it to get more personal in ways I don't know that I think surprised him, but then he was glad we did. And I knew, because I know him, I thought, well, you should say this thing about you that I think is pertinent to this, or whatever. And so I felt like, because he was the actor and the playwright, and I knew him so well, we could but it enriched the piece, I think. So in that way, it was great. I could see where maybe a person could get into all kinds of things where that could be trouble with an actor playwright, and you can't, divorce them. The writer person can't divorce from the actor. But I never had that issue, but I haven't worked on all that many.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and you were very close to the people you worked with, so that
helps.
Yeah.
Or in my case, I could see where also that, I mean, where it doesn't, but it worked. It worked in those cases, and I think we got good shows. But is the question, do I have time for your final?
Sure. It's just, tell us a story that happened to you or that you saw in the theater where something went horribly wrong.
Yeah, can be funny or horrible, whichever way. Scary or funny.
But it happened to me.
Whatever.
It doesn't have to have happened to you, but it could be one of your shows or you or somebody you saw.
You know what? You can also say, I don't want to answer that question.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I always remember there was a production that I was involved in when I was a student at Trinity Rep, and we did a production. I was involved in a production of Romeo and Juliet on the main stage. I think I was still a student at the time. And it was like 5 or 6 actors doing Romeo and Juliet. And the director set it in a big giant pool of water. The whole stage was water with these giant armoires, and it kind of moved and stuff. It was a very odd, very, heady production, but I mean, gorgeous to look at. The lighting and what you could do with the water. And I mean, it was gorgeous. It made no sense. And of course, because it was Romeo and Juliet, we had to do 1,000 performances for schools in the mornings, and it was a long run. We did it forever, and adults at night. And because it was water and you get all those kids in, they're constantly throwing stuff at the water, gum, pennies, like you throw in the fountain. And I mean, and we were all getting sick because you're in water, and then the water's dirty after a few days. The whole thing was a mess. And we were slipping and sliding all the time. It was horrifying, and it went on forever. We were miserable and bitter. And but we would splash the kids if they would throw something. We would just
yeah.
I mean, it was there was a million stories from that, but it was a nightmare.
Yep. I always thought about that when I watched Metamorphosis. I was like, oh, who wants to be in water? No, I know it's beautiful, but I'm glad I'm not in that play.
Yeah, it was horrifying.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Well, thank you for sharing that Romeo and Juliet experience with us.
Like that.
Yeah.
Well, Eric Tucker, the time went too fast for me anyway. I'll just say that.
It does go fast, actually.
That's
That's weird.
Yeah. Well, and we definitely hope that we see you very soon.
I do too.
In the real world. So
I do too. We'll have to all cook something up together when we can come out of the apocalypse. All right. Thank you, guys. Thank you for this so much. It's so great to see you.
You too. You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Beyond the Fourth Wall is produced by Fourth Wall Theater Company, Houston's home for extraordinary performances up close. Each guest is paid for their appearance on this series, in accordance with our mission to pay artists a living wage. Follow the links in the video description to support Fourth Wall with a tax-deductible gift, or to subscribe to our upcoming 10th anniversary season.
That was like an amazing flash of light.
I know. Well, I just
killed a bug.
I killed a bug.
Screen.
Oh,
I think she smashed it on the camera.
I think I smashed on the camera.
That is hysterical.
We're coming back. Okay,
there we
sorry.
Go.
Was that like the blood or something that just...
Bug.
it's